Okay. Okay, so now can you hear me? Okay, but I don't know if I can hear you.
I bought another
Okay.
one.
Perfect.
Well, they're starting to do
All
that.
right.
I don't know if you saw it. Pfizer, they're actually doing that.
Yeah.
I've only seen green and black.
You taking
There
the
doesn't seem to be an
packet
in between.
Commissioner Sullivan, can you hear us?
Commissioner Sullivan, can you hear us? Michael Sullivan. Sully. Commissioner Lanier, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you?
No.
We got you.
You still have Commissioner Sullivan on?
Commissioner Sullivan.
Does he have to unmute on his side, or does he come in? He comes in unmuted, right? I would. Yeah. There he is.
Commissioner Sullivan.
Me try to put him on my cell phone?
Can you hear me?
Oh, we
There
got
he
you
is.
now. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you well.
Splendid.
Okay.
Sounded like
Yeah, sure.
we get in trouble for starting a minute early.
Looks
I
like
have
it's 4 o'clock
4:01.
on my side,
Oh, you have
but I think that
4:01?
clock
Yeah.
is a little slow.
Man, that must be Jack Fortner's old clock up there. Hey, Jack, how are you doing if you're listening? All right. Call this meeting to order. And we'll start out with an invocation, and Commissioner Fortner's agreed to do that.
Heavenly Father, thank you for this time together. Just thank you for all the snow that we received and the safety on the road. We pray for everyone that is on the road. Be with us during this commission meeting, and your will be done. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Commissioner Tottacini, will you lead us in the pledge?
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. So that brings us to our regular meeting. And are there any changes to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, no changes to the agenda
Okay.
tonight.
Mr. Chair, motion to approve the agenda.
Having been moved and seconded, all favor of, ask if there's any changes to the consent agenda?
No, we'll approve the agenda first
Okay.
and then take action on the
All right,
consent.
all those in favor of approving the agenda as presented, say
Aye.
aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, I don't hear any opposed. I will state for the record that if anybody is opposed and I say it was unanimous, please speak up so that we can address that. But I will assume that if I don't hear any opposition, that the vote was unanimous.
Can I just ask who made the second, since we have two that are telephonically?
Okay. Who made the second out in telephone land?
I did.
Sullivan. For today's meeting, if you could please follow your second or your motion with your name so that we can keep that record clear, okay? All right. Brings us to our consent agenda. Does anybody wish to alter that, take an item off of consent agenda?
Mr. Chair, you may want to run through the items on the consent for the benefit of the audience.
Okay, so our consent agenda, number one is consideration of approval, treasurer check register for January 2021. Number two is consideration of approval finance check registers for January 2021. Number three, consideration of budget adjustment number 9, resolution number 20-21-46. Number 4 is ratification of grant agreement with New Mexico Workforce Connection Help New Mexico / San Juan for the San Juan County Sheriff's Office. Number 5 is award of bid 20-21-09, price agreement for the purchase of magnesium chloride to Desert Mountain Corporation. And number 6 is consideration for award of bid 20-21-10, purchase of two cooling towers for San Juan Regional Medical Center to B&M Sillison of Farmington, New Mexico. Anybody have any desire to take any of those items from the consent agenda? Not hearing any, I'll stand for a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Having been moved and seconded, those in favor of approval of the consent agenda, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Not hearing any opposition, I will assume that it passed unanimously. Brings us to new business number 1, which is the consideration of resolution number 20-21-45, inducement resolution for 201 LC ME LLC and 309 SJ ME LLC industrial revenue bonds. Mr. Buckholz from the Rohde Law Firm. Mr. Carrasco?
Mr. Nelson on? Well, David?
Yes, good afternoon. This is Dan Nelson with 8 Minute Solar Energy.
Don't know where my friends from out of town are, but being involved, I think I can present this to you. This is the second in a group of industrial revenue bonds which have been proposed. This is for a smaller unit by 8 Minute Solar, 2 separate LLCs, one for production, one for storage, to be done for replacement power for the San Juan generating station. The first step in an IRB is to do an inducement resolution, which says we'll consider doing it, we're interested in doing this for you, and it lets them to start using that inducement resolution to buy equipment tax-free. Because this is subject to the Energy Transition Act, the college, the schools, and us are to be held harmless from any loss of property taxes. I'll be happy to try to answer any questions.
Do you think we need to have them add anything?
So do I need to, do either of you want to add anything?
Well, this is Dan with 8 Minute. I would say that you summarized that perfectly. I have nothing to add. Thank you.
And I think Dave, you and Luis are also on the line.
I had a hard time joining the meeting. I'm sorry I'm late.
I just ran through it and I think we're okay.
Good, thanks.
We'll be happy to answer any questions.
Feedback.
No questions, I'll stand for the motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 20-21-45.
Second it. Sullivan.
Having been moved and seconded, is there any further discussion, any other questions? Not hearing any, those in favor of passing resolution number 20-21-45 say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not hearing any, I will presume that it was a unanimous vote to pass. Brings us on to item number 2, consideration of San Juan County ordinances 114, 115, and 116. I'm not going to read the rest.
That's fair. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, we had hoped to do the IRB ordinances for the 3 San Juan solar projects tonight. We were perhaps a little aggressive in our timetable, particularly when we learned that the San Juan solar people at least are on the agenda for the planned CCSD board meeting that's going on this afternoon. So what we'd simply ask you to do is to table all three of these to March 2nd for final adoption.
Okay. I'll stand for a
I
motion.
move that we table it to March 2nd.
Second the motion.
All right, it's been moved that we table new business item number 2, which is consideration of San Juan County ordinances 114, 115, and 116 to our March 2nd meeting. Is there any further discussion? Not hearing any. Those in favor of tabling this item, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, I presume it passed with everybody's vote. Brings us to item number 3, which is consideration of amended intergovernmental agreement for building inspection services to the city of Aztec. Chris Carden.
Chairman, Commissioners, this is an agreement we've been working on for quite a while now with the city of Aztec. As you know, Aztec Fire Department's 100% volunteer. They don't have anybody that is certified in building inspections and fire prevention activities. The building department's been in agreement with the city of Aztec for many years now, and what we looked at is amending that agreement to add in the fire marshal duties from San Juan County Fire and Rescue. And that's what we bring towards you today is that agreement. I stand for any questions.
How much more work does this put on your table?
To be honest with you, it doesn't put that much additional work. We've hired a fire prevention captain, which has been helping out. Also have several volunteers that I utilize that are trained in fire inspection and code compliance. The other nice thing is back, I believe in 2015, we adopted a fee schedule. So when we go out and do fire inspections, we actually charge for those. So we're recouping our costs for going out and doing those inspections. So.
Very well, and it helps out our friends over in the city of Aztec.
Yes, sir.
All right. Does anybody have any other questions?
I don't have any questions.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move for approval of the amended intergovernmental agreement for building inspection services to the city of Aztec.
Second.
Having been moved and seconded, is there any further discussion? Not hearing any, I'll ask for a vote regarding this. Those in favor of approval, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Not hearing any, this item passes unanimously. So thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners.
Brings us to item number 4, consideration of approval of application for regional and local FEMA FP&S grants. Fire Chief John Mueller.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, similar to the grants we requested approval for at the last meeting, FEMA is offering a fire prevention and safety grants. We would like to apply regionally with Farmington again for a smoke detector program. Each entity will match only a little over $3,000 each, so it's a fairly low cost grant. Second would be we want to apply for some new cameras for our investigation teams for the fire investigations. Again, low cost, $1,000 match. Again, we'll use state funding for most of that. Shouldn't affect general lines at all. I stand for any questions.
And people are able to get access to these smoke detectors, or?
If awarded, yes, we will. And like I said, we're keeping up with Farmington. Farmington's writing this grant, the last one we wrote. So we're just taking turns there,
Okay.
helping each other out. They would split pretty much half and half, whoever needs them. We would like to do some pushes in neighborhoods that really need them, where we have repeated fires, and try to get them out to the public for no cost.
So it's in relation to history of what's going on.
Exactly, that's what we're going to look at.
That's good to hear.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, it won't tax the funds or the budget because you already have money that'd be the 5%. So
Exactly.
it'll work out.
Yep, and the 5% is really, really low. We're not applying for a whole lot, just $3,000. So We'll
Okay.
cover that with the existing funds that are in our fire prevention. It'll get us a lot more detectors for the same funds that we would spend anyway, so.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Totticini, we joked this morning at the staff meeting, this is almost as good as free money. 100% grant. It's only a 5% match. So we really like these kind of grants.
Any other questions? We'll stand for a motion.
Motion to approve for staff to apply for the 2 FP and S grants, which includes a 5% match. Second.
Having been moved and seconded, is there any further discussion? Not hearing any. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not hearing any opposition, I'll assume it was unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brings us to, maybe we'll skip over 5. for Tanya's. No, I'm joking. Item number 5, consideration of resolution 20-21-47. Reappointment of Board of Registration, our illustrious county clerk, Tanya Shelby.
Chairman and members of the commission, now you know why I stay in my office.
Totally understand.
So virtually what this is during our July 2019 commission meeting, the commissioners at the time appointed my board of registration, which included 5 members, 2 from the Democratic Party, 2 from the Republican Party, and 1 from the Libertarian Party. Since the appointment, we have 1 individual that we haven't been able to get into contact with, and my board of registration is going to meet on March 3rd. And so I'm asking that you reappoint that position. And Kathy Lawman meets all of the statutory requirements to serve on the board. And she's willing. She's already expressed her willingness to serve. So I'm requesting that the commission appoint Kathy Lawman to my board of registration. I stand for any questions.
Mr. Chair, before these people get appointed, do they submit a letter of interest, or how does that work?
Chairman and Commissioner Totticini, no, they don't. We actually just work with the party chairs, and then
I think they get voluntold.
yeah,
Oh,
that's pretty much how it works.
Any other questions? I'll stand for a motion.
I move that we adopt the resolution 2021-47 to reappoint member of the Board of Registration.
Second.
Having been moved and seconded, is there any further discussion? Not hearing any. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Not hearing any. I presume it passed without opposition.
Thank you.
Number 6, it's our annual update on the First Tee program, and I think Tom Yost is here in person to present. Mr. Yost.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I've got a slideshow for you today. First off, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of our hearts on behalf of our entire organization. We really appreciate the continued support that San Juan County gives us, not only in the form of being our fiscal agent, but monetary support, manpower support, and womanpower support, as well with regards to everything that happened in 2020. COVID sort of, like with everything, sort of took us and our best laid plans and turned them upside down. So we were very reliant on a lot of the relief packages that were made available to us. And we worked in conjunction with a lot of your employees on the finance side to ensure that we were sustainable through PPP and through business continuity grants and the CARES relief grants. So just want to start off by saying thank you so much, because without that, I might not be standing here right now. presenting to you. So maybe.
What's his new title?
Mr. Hollywood? Just yell Hollywood.
Hollywood.
Showtime.
Right now. Hey, there we go. There we go. Our focus got shifted. Before it was a lot of life skills and character values that we taught through the game of golf all throughout the county and in southwestern Colorado. Our focus sort of got changed basically because we feel now that the mental health aspect and the wellness of getting kids outside and active is going to be a bigger problem going forward in our community. So that sort of was the main focus. So we sort of made the let us play sort of our mantra for 2020 and going into 2021. That's going to be a huge focus. The mental wellness aspect that golf provides is going to be huge on our plate. So, and if you haven't seen some of the budgets coming out of Riverview, golf has sort of exploded. So it's really cool that everybody has sort of gravitated to the game of golf through this pandemic. And now the challenge will be to make sure that we sort of grab onto those people that have chosen the game of golf and make them avid golfers. So
I was going to say that, the few times that I've played, my mental health and wellness is actually affected by playing.
in a negative manner?
But that's because I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, there are options for that. lot of us that can teach you, Mr. Chairman. So I would say that adaptability was probably the word of the year for us. We sort of started off the year going through a name change. So we are no longer the First Tee of San Juan County, New Mexico. We are First Tee Four Corners. Sort of gives us a more regional scope, and it speaks to programs that are going on in Cortez and Durango as we speak as well. I did bring some mugs for the commissioners that we have a new logo and our name change on there, so you can drink your coffee or any cold beverage that you'd like on a daily basis. Hopefully when I come back next year, I'll see those mugs out in the open. We had to shift some educational opportunities to online just because golf got shut down at the beginning of the pandemic, which didn't really make a lot of sense to us, but sometimes nothing makes sense. And I think once golf came back online, it gave a great avenue for all the other activities, both indoor and outdoor, that sort of got shut down as well. So we took advantage of that and shifted our focus, because when we came back online, we were only allowed to have 4 participants to 1 coach. That was sort of the base that was recommended by the New Mexico State Health Order. So what we did was we took our model and changed it to more leagues and tournaments, so we could keep the kids in groups of 4 still. So it was still abiding by the COVID safe practices. But we could get 40 to 50 participants out on the golf course at a time rather than just 4 at a time. So that really was huge for us. So tournaments, leagues, girls golf leagues, PGA Junior leagues, which is all throughout the country, but we were one of the only ones that were able to run safely throughout the country, which is great. And then adult junior tournaments have become huge too, because not only we're getting the kids out, but we're getting parents out as well for their sort of mental sanity. So that was our focus, and that focus is going to continue in 2021. We're excited, and we're bringing on a new platform called Operation 36. So what Operation 36 is an app-based program that's going to be able to measure a whole lot of things that we weren't able to measure, and a couple of those measurements will be really exciting. We're going to have hard data that we'll be able to bring to you, not only for our participants in 2021, but for the facilities that our participants are playing on as well. So it's going to be able to track objectively progress, which is so hard, especially for youth development programs. A lot of it is subjective. but to be able to give hard data now to parents and the kids, for them to show what their progress actually is. And it's all going to be done on an app-based program. So it's going to be at the palm of their hand. So we're taking golf into the 21st century, which a lot of other programs are not at that point. We're going to be able to track their practice and play away from the golf course. So we'll be able to see what they're doing when they're not in front of us, which is a key aspect of the progress of the program as well. And then we're also going to be able to show, and you can't see that slide, we're also going to have a facility impact report. So we'll be able to show the impact that our program has financially on Riverview Golf Course, Pinion Hills Golf Course, Civitan Golf Course, all the golf courses, based on all of our participants. I will go back real quick and end the slide here. We have, through this app-based program, what's called a junior development model. So when a child starts at, say, 7 years old, we'll be able to sit down with their parents and track where they started from, where they finished when they turn 18 and head to college. In the middle, we'll be able to sit down and set goals based on where the progress is to see if they're ahead of where they want to be, right at where they want to be, or behind where they want to be, and be able to set tangible programs and plans to get our participants where they want to be, not only with the game of golf, but also with their life skills and character values within the first tee. So we're expanding into Durango. I have a training up there tomorrow at Hillcrest Golf Course, and we're also collaborating with other Salem County nonprofits to explore larger grants to help mental health and wellness all throughout the community. So trying to partner with other youth servicing agencies to really bring in money, not on the town, but from outside, because, you know, the economy's sort of been devastated by COVID and other extenuating factors. We're trying to bring outside funds into the community to help that out, not only trying to rely on just the same old dollars. But with that being said, exciting things going on. We're expanding where a lot of other youth servicing agencies are contracting just based on financially everything that's happened. So COVID's been sort of a blessing in disguise, if I would say so. We're progressing forward, and it's going to be really good, not only for the community, but sort of the whole region as well. So thank you once again. Sort of got long-winded there, but thank you for everything you guys do for us. It's truly amazing, the partnership and the collaboration we've had for the past 11 years now. So,
As far as the technology goes, is there technology that's say for like a seniors division, you know, for somebody that's a lot older that wants to be able to track their progress?
Talking about me?
Yeah.
that tracking can be used for adults as well. Obviously, I can't get you on a college golf team,
Dang it.
Mr. Chairman, but
I don't know if I have any more eligibility.
but yeah, that tracking, women's programs, men's programs, beginners, intermediates, we can use that application for all of the above. But since we're a youth servicing agency, that's all I report on.
So you kind of alluded though that can you use that as a recruiting tool for these kids if they progress in golf in a manner that they could play at the collegiate level? Can you use that as a recruitment tool?
Well, I mean, yeah, the kids, we're using it as a recruiting tool to get more kids into the program that maybe weren't interested beforehand. But I think what we're going to see is, based on the data and the hard data that we're able to produce to parents are then going to spread through word of mouth everything that's happening with their kids and the progress that they've been able to show, objective progress, like I said, not just the coach saying, hey, Johnny's getting better. I mean, it is hard data that we're going to be able to report on. I think things are going to explode, honestly, in the next couple of years.
And are you still working with the schools?
We are. 2020 sort of, I mean, we were at the liberty of what the schools were able to do. And since, I mean, I can speak from experience, my kids haven't been back to school for almost a year now. My daughter was supposed to go back today, and pretty devastated that we finally got 5 inches of snow and canceled school. So
That's the first time I think a child has been disappointed for a snow day.
pretty much. She took advantage of it though. She went sledding with Bill Snowman, so it was good. But everybody's chomping at the bit to have some social interaction. I mean, that's so important. That's just been taken away, and I think we're going to see this problem sort of expanded for years and years. I think mental health in this whole last year is going to take its toll in not a good manner, and we got to prepare for that. So.
Any other questions, comments?
I'm just curious because I participated when Janie Baines was still out there, and I really enjoyed the golf course and the antelope, and it was very nice. So where's that information stay? Is it a software that it kind of follows them as they go through the years?
Correct. So it's an app-based program that the parents sign up for, and then the kids become part of that program, and they'll be able to continue to. And obviously, it's good data in, good data out. I mean, if the kids don't track their progress, and we do a poor job of inputting, what's going on, then we're not going to get very good data. But that's going to follow them at least until they're out of the program at 17, 18, heading towards either the workforce or secondary education opportunities. So.
And do they get PE credit for it at all, or in high school, or?
Well, if they're a member of the golf team, they get PE credit.
Okay.
So, and I can probably say this with confidence that 95 to 97% of all the golfers that are participating in high school golf right now have been with the first tee at one point or another in their tenure. So.
And can they rent clubs?
Absolutely. That's an opportunity. So we don't turn anybody away based on their financial situation. So we have scholarships. We don't turn anybody away because they don't have equipment. So we provide equipment as well. So yeah, that's an important and key aspect because those that play golf know it can get really expensive really quick. But what this community does a great job of, not only Riverview but Opinion Hills, is the fee structures are so low compared to everywhere else that golf is no longer the rich person sport. It's now gravitating down to those that couldn't afford it before, and we're making that possible through all of our fundraising and grant efforts as well. So
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, a comment here. I was reading an article that the youngest child that committed suicide was age 9 because of the situation we're in right now. So I'm really glad that you're up with the times and you added that mental health component. So thank you for that.
well, thank you, Mr. Tortini. It's like I said, it's going to be a big part of what we do going forward. So we realize that there's an opportunity, but hopefully people take advantage of it. Get outside, get active. So.
Any other questions? Mr. Yost, thank you.
Thank you.
Tom.
All right, that brings us to, that completes item number 6. Hate to open it up, but next is our report from county manager.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I hope you're in for a lengthy report.
Keep it more brief than what Mr. Yost is.
Fairly lengthy, so I should be okay. I would like to update you all on a couple items, legislative update, reopening status update, and our pursuit of information from the state, and an EDA grant that we've recently received that was on the front page of the paper today, and give you a little more info on that. But before I do so, I'd like to, and I know he's anxiously awaiting online, I believe Mike Mestis, our emergency manager, would like to give you a brief vaccination update in our efforts to date there. So, Mr. Mestis, if you're on, please go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Stark, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. My update from the Emergency Management Office today. As I always start our briefs, 13,345 positives with 415 deaths in San Juan County. Again, our numbers remain low. Caveat for today's numbers that I wanted to let the commission know, you'll see that we had a positive number of 12 today with 2 deaths. Keep in mind that Curative was not open on Sunday. They were closed yesterday due to the cold weather, and they were closed again today because of the snow. So with no testing, of course, those numbers are going to be low. So we'll see a spike towards the end of the week for those folks that didn't get tested. So it gives us hope seeing that low number, but because Curative was not open, that's why you're seeing the number of 12 today. We continue to have Curative testing at McGee Park, again, with the exception of yesterday and today. But all appointments will be met, and they'll work those in tomorrow for anybody that had an appointment the last 2 days. Our vaccinations continue throughout San Juan County, and we have a total number of 32,658 vaccines in San Juan County. I don't have that map printed out for you this time to show you what place. Before they changed the portal, we were in 3rd place, still behind Bernalillo and Santa Fe County, but they've changed that portal, so I don't have that map to be able to print for you. We don't know why DOH, well, Mr. Stark might speak to why they keep changing the numbers on it because of that 0.01%. So for that reason, I wanted to update you that Navajo Nation out in Shiprock at IHS did 5,000 vaccinations just in the week alone last week. On one day, they did 1,883 vaccines at Shiprock High School. So kudos to the IHS nurses out there in Shiprock. Locally, the Department of Health continues our vaccine distribution at San Juan College on Wednesdays and Thursdays. We wanted to try to do a vaccine clinic today, but the weather held us back at McGee Park. But they'll continue to put those vaccinations at San Juan College. Kudos to San Juan Regional, PMS, Walmart, Walgreens, and Care Drug for continuing their vaccine at their respective locations. And a big thank you goes out to Pinion Pharmacy, Mr. Craig Burgess. He helped us by doing all the senior centers' first dose last week. So all the senior centers in San Juan County were completed. With that, Walgreens and CVS did second doses to all the nursing homes in San Juan County. So you see we're starting to do very well, and that's why our numbers are up in regard to vaccine. With that, we continue to support all operations and plan for our next second dose clinic at McGee Park on February 27th. With that, I'll be brief and stand for any questions.
Mr. Mestas, so with the rates that we've had since the last report came out, would we be on track to meet the yellow category with the state?
I'll ask the PIO to help confirm me, but we should be from 20 to 23 for us to change in that yellow. Am I correct, Evan?
Mr. Chairman, we would probably meet the yellow criteria based on test positivity rate. There's a general feeling that the way to get us to that point is to get more tests out on the street and more people tested. As far as the actual number of cases a day, we're still double that, more or less. We need to see 10 or fewer cases per day, or an average thereof over 2 weeks. So we would have to see 140 cases in the 2 weeks to meet both of those criteria, and then we move to the green.
As you see, our PIO is very valuable.
Absolutely. Please refer to him as Mr. Hollywood.
Mr. Hollywood.
Any other questions for Mr. Mestas?
Thank you, Commission, for your support.
Thank you, sir. I think that defers back to you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, appreciate that. I just want to thank Mike Mestas and his team for his efforts. Based on the DOH's new website relative to vaccinations, it indicates, we're questioning the population number that they've listed online, but it shows that 25% of our population to date has been partially or fully vaccinated. And so we discussed last time, you add in the folks that have some type of presumed vaccination or from positive tests, that that's another 13,000 folks. That's 40,000 people in San Juan County. They're using a number of roughly just under 100,000. That would mean 40% of our population has some type of immunity from COVID-19 through that. So that's good news, as we are working hard to get reopened, and we'll chat about that in just a bit. I thought I'd first start off with the really good news. The EDA grant that you saw in the Daily Times this morning, that was a grant that you all approved submission of back in June, I believe, of last year. Largest portion of that grant set aside for network and fiber upgrades at San Juan Regional Medical Center, the facility that's owned by San Juan County and the taxpayers. And so that's why we're the fiscal agent on that grant. That's why we applied for the funding. And so that's exciting to be able to move forward with that project, improve the telehealth service offerings from San Juan Regional Medical Center. And then 2 generators, emergency backup generators, one for the sheriff's office and one for McGee Park, the convention center. That's actually early on was identified as an alternative care site for San Juan County. And of course, one of the items we were lacking in being able to make that a true alternative care site was backup generation in the case of a power outage. So of which you're kind of seeing what happens when the power goes out in Texas, and why it's important to have backup generation. So that's great to have. It's a $1.25 million grant, and then with the match requirements, brings the total project costs up to $1.8 million. A big thanks to Tricia Corbis, who's our EDA rep, federal rep that covers New Mexico. They were a big supporter of our application. The COG, Evan Williams, Northwest New Mexico COG, and Mr. Cox has spent quite a bit of time on that grant as well. So it's nice to see the fruits of labor actually come forth, and to be able to bring those good economic development projects to San Juan County through the EDA CARES Act funding. Legislative update, that's somewhere between good news and bad news. 741 bills introduced. 753 bills that have been introduced as of today. And in front of you, you see the legislative packet that I've provided you that updates you on all the various bills, positions, New Mexico counties and what positions they've taken as respect to individual pieces of legislation. To note, only 27 bills to date have either passed the House or the Senate, and most of those were bipartisan type bills. There hasn't been anything that's, with the exception of this afternoon, House Bill 4 did make it through the floor of the House. So now that bill will move to the Senate. And I know there's been a lot of conversation regarding how it's been amended and whether or not those are amendments that are suitable to us. The bill has been capped now at $2 million in terms of damages, which is helpful, but by no means is that something that we can collectively support, given the exposure that we'll have, and more importantly, our insurance will have relative to potential claims. So there's still a hope that we can, as it makes its way through the Senate, we'll be able to potentially make that bill a little more friendly towards local governments, and the potential insurance increases that we would all see if that legislation were to make it through. Ironically enough, the next meeting, we hope to be bringing forward to you our insurance renewal for 2021. So I'm curious to see how that ends up shaping up, because I can assure you that insurance underwriters watch very carefully what's happening with legislation across the state. And so they'll be paying particular close attention to that. Of course, the cannabis bills that the governor had indicated would come forth, recreational marijuana use, those, I think 4 different bills have been introduced, and tracking those to see which one ends up making it to the finish line, because it appears obviously it has full support from the House, Senate, the governor's office. The devil will be in the details in terms of what's actually in that bill and how it would work, what level of tax revenue the state and local governments would share in, what, if any, potential issues for law enforcement arise through that bill. A lot of concern about being able to do, DWI tests and what tests would be used and how would that work, and would the courts accept, the standard that's, because there is a question about what's the right type of test and the different standards that exist with testing. So lots to come forth with that. So we're keeping a close eye on, I believe, the list in front of you. We've got 112 different bills that we're separately tracking. And then I also put in front of you the list to date that New Mexico counties. I know Commissioner Fortney, you serve as our representative on the New Mexico Counties Board, the bills that they're supporting and opposing. I will note that there are more bills that are being supported than opposed. That doesn't mean that this is going to be welcome news to us in terms of how legislation makes it through to the finish line. I think there's a lot of concern, and we may have some other elected officials that want to chime in relative to some bills that they're watching. But just wanted to make sure you had a full and complete comprehensive update. The last day to introduce bills is this Thursday, the 18th. So a lot more to come, and a lot more committee meetings and floor debates, and we'll be closely watching and participating in those. I know today during the HB4 debate, received a text from one of our legislators needing information relative to that bill and specific to the county. So fortunately, during our Zoom meeting, we were able to quickly respond and get them the information they need, because that's the most effective way to communicate with legislators now. Normally we'd potentially be in the roundhouse and interacting, but text messages will have to do through this session. So any questions on that before I move on to our last item? No? Okay. Well, as you all know, we unfortunately missed moving into the yellow status as part of the red to green reopening. I know, Mr. Chairman, you asked about what it would take for us to move from red to yellow and then green. We missed it by 0.01%.
0.009%, right? Wasn't it 0.009 and they rounded up to 0.01?
Yes, correct, Mr. Chairman. The state did go out to the thousandth column to round up to the 100th, which got us to 0.01, which, by the way, equates to 1 positive test or 15 negatives. So right shortly after the governor's press conference, we actually had Mr. Mestis had a very astute citizen contact him saying, hey, I went onto the state's website trying to find out, and track the data for myself, went to San Juan County historical data, pulled the charts that show tests and positive cases, and I extrapolated that out, and I'm coming up with a test positivity rate of 4%. So we go and check that, and sure enough, Mr. Neely then decided to take the press releases, and because the state issues daily press releases that show the case count, positive cases, put those on an Excel spreadsheet, add the graph data that was available online, and to compare and contrast those. And it was off by, I believe, 1 case, 2, but then they had an adjustment. And so that's not bad. I believe it was 535 to 536. But once again, the test positivity rate would be in the 4% range. And so that caused us great concern because we couldn't figure out how these numbers were matching up. And so to try to pursue the right level of information and data for our citizens, we filed an inspection of public records request to find out specifically the 3 questions we asked was a copy of all criteria used to determine transmission rate for red, yellow, green determination, copy of all raw data used to calculate San Juan County's transmission rate, released on February 10th, and a copy of all calculations converting raw data to transmission rate for San Juan County released on February 10th. That request went in that morning. As a matter of courtesy, I called the governor's chief of staff to give him a heads up and just to say, hey, this is not adversarial. We're just trying to reach out and get the right information so we can provide that to our citizens, and we have a better understanding of how this was all calculated, because it's not matching up what's available online and made available publicly versus the 5.01%. Actually, we ended up with a Zoom meeting that afternoon. The chairman participated with Mayor Duckett, Mr. Mays at the City of Farmington, and Dr. Scrace, who went through and shared with us, and we looked at the data online. Sure enough, he said, yeah, you're right, it's a 4% positivity rate, but I just want to let you know we don't use that data to calculate your positivity rate. And I said, well, I appreciate you letting us know that. That's exactly why we filed the public records request. We really want to get that data and have an understanding of how you came to that conclusion, and for us to miss by 0.01%. You know, we've got a lot of businesses that are hanging on by a thread and could really use, specifically restaurants, would be able to open up to 25% dine-in capacity, which is really important when you've got 6 inches of snow on the ground. A lot of people don't want to go eat outdoors in a tent, or they may do drive-through or carry-out, but in terms of a dine-in option, you really have eliminated those businesses from having an opportunity to open up. And they missed out on Valentine's Day. That was the concern last week, is that's a pretty sizable amount of business that they could have taken advantage of potentially. And so come to find out during that meeting, we also was conveyed to us that in addition to the data not being readily available publicly, it's also not available by day. So the state only has aggregate numbers. They're posting their press releases by day. There's information historically on the website by day, but the way in which they're calculating test positivity rate is not available by day. And so that was a little concerning to find out as well. And so ultimately, our public records request has been responded to. The Department of Health recognized our request and indicated that we could anticipate a response to our request within the IPRA guidelines, 14 days, on February 26, 2021. Today, Mr. Eccles subsequently received a note from the New Mexico Department of Health forwarding this request to the Office of the Governor to respond to this records request with the same response date of February 26. Now, within the legal parameters of IPRA, but you might be asking, well, when's the next round of data come out to determine whether or not reopening would be possible for us to move up a level? And that's not until February, or that's February 24th. So we won't receive the data on our first request until after the next round of data comes out on February 24th. So, Mr. Chairman, we unfortunately are reporting to you that we have more questions than answers as it relates to the data. I did understand from a KRQE interview from the state that they do understand that this data is not made available publicly as of yet. They hope to do that by the next round of reporting, but they're thinking it's going to take a couple rounds before they can be fully transparent and provide answers to the citizens of San Juan County regarding how those calculations are made and be able to visibly see that data for themselves.
Did they say why it was going to take a few more rounds before they could make that available?
Mr. Chairman, my understanding from the conversation we had with state officials, it's just going to take some time to actually get their reporting system to be moved to an online format. But they were hopeful they might be able to do it by this next round, but more than likely it would be the round after that. So as you asked earlier, what would it take for us to move to yellow? We're hopeful we're that close. We were one positive case away from potentially making it. I sure hope that this next round, we don't fall short by 0.01% again. And more importantly, I hope we actually have data to share with our citizens. Because, there's so many folks counting on this, and especially our business owners. Our restaurants are just barely squeaking by, and we've already had a few restaurants that have closed and some that have left the state because they can't continue to operate with this level of uncertainty. So I could stand for any questions you have, but I wanted to update you on all this information that we've received over the weekend and today.
So in the meantime, our restaurants and our businesses are just at the mercy of waiting the 14 days to get the information, and hopefully we're in the yellow by the next report. But and if the information that we get shows that we should have been in the yellow, if there were any errors in the data, it's just too bad, so sad. We didn't get you the information so that you could contest it.
Mr. Chairman, that is correct. We did ask for, given we were so close, given our vaccination rate here is phenomenal relative to the rest of the state. The 0.01 is essentially a rounding error. Could you help us out? We've been doing everything the right way to work to get to where we can reopen, and to miss it by that, and to have no consideration from the state. I mean, the public health order itself, when you look at it, it says if you're at 5% or less, you qualify to move up. It didn't state 5.0%. It certainly didn't state 5.00%. It was a whole number, 5. And we'd be able to move into the yellow category. So even the public health order doesn't speak to decimals. But that's the standard that we were being held to, unfortunately.
Very well, thank you.
Good.
Is there anything else that, as a county, have we done everything that we can to try to address that with the governor's office and with the state? Is there anything else that we can do to try to move the needle, or to have somebody make a policy decision to open us earlier before the next round of data?
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, great question. As you know, in our call that we had with Dr. Trace, he indicated that, he was the data and science guy, and would, he's not the individual that makes policy decisions, and we understand that. I mean, everybody's got a role to play. But we did reach out to Mayor Duckett. I know reached out directly to Mr. Garcia, the Chief of Staff for the Governor's Office, explaining our case and making our case. And I haven't heard back from him today, but as of Friday evening, he had not received a response. So and you also heard too that, and I understand, I mean, obviously there's got to be a line drawn in the sand, to be fair and equitable all. And that was made clear to us on the call, that the line in the sand was 5.00%, and we were at 5.01%. So that's the state's line in the sand. Unfortunately, we didn't make it, but we've reached out to all the folks that could possibly help us with this matter. I shared, as you know, this information with all of our legislative delegation, making sure they were aware of what our efforts were and to see if they could assist with this matter. I think everybody's the way that the public health order and the laws relative to the governor having sole authority, I think it would have to take some form of action from the governor's office to allow us to move forward. But honestly, without those results, it's hard for us to analyze that and to see how those numbers are calculated and to have a thorough review of it. So that's the first step. We've got to have answers to those questions first. But yes, in answer to to your question, I believe we've done everything we can. I know you've been actively engaged in this matter yourself.
So I guess on a side note, do you think House Bill 4, if it's passed, would, or maybe Mr. Eccles could address this, if they're not applying the health order exactly how it's written, could that potentially open the governor or the governor's office to liability under House Bill 4? I'm just curious. I don't know.
Yeah, I would defer to our legal counsel, Mr. Chair.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Stark.
You bet. Thank you.
I can't find my agenda. All right, so reports from elected officials and department heads. No one wants to come up after that dismal report? Anybody else want to say anything, have anything to report? Okay, so that gets us to comments, input from the general public, limited to 3 minutes per person on subjects the commission has not previously discussed or formal action has not been taken. No formal action will be taken at this meeting which relates to comments or input from the general public. Do we have any comments? Okay. No executive meeting needs to be held?
No, sir.
So that brings us to adjourn. Not having any other items on the agenda, I'll declare the meeting adjourned.